behalf of the Ministry of the Economy, the Klimaagence and Lux Innovation, I welcome you to this informative webinar on calls for projects for installation of photovoltaic power plants. In this webinar, we will be discussing two calls for projects that were both launched at the same time, the 19th of July 2025. The first call for projects that we will be discussing today is the operating aid, which is open until the 28th of November 2025. The other call for project is the investment aid, which is open until the 17th of October 2025. This webinar is designed to answer all your questions about these calls for projects. To do so, we have three speakers today. Claude Clemens, who is part of the Renewable Energy Service team at the Ministry of the Economy, Raphael Vertommen, head of the Ecological Transition Unit at the Ministry of the Economy, and Tom Rajek, project manager at the Klimaagence. I am Jordi Oliveira, an advisor within the national funding team of Lux Innovation. Before handing over to our speakers, I will just give you a quick overview of the agenda and what to expect during this webinar. It is expected to last approximately 1 hour. We will begin with a presentation of the call of the projects and the submission procedures via MyGuichet, which will be followed by a presentation of the guide to authorization procedure for renewable energy projects. And finally, we will conclude the webinar by a Q&A session. You can already write your questions at any time during the presentation using the question tab, which is located in the upper right corner of your screen. Then we will try to answer the questions either by writing or verbally after the presentation. Lastly, I would like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded. The replay and the slides will be made available on Lux Innovation's website. After the webinar, you will also receive an email containing the recording and the slides. I will now hand over to Claude Clemens, who will begin the presentation.
Yes, hello everyone, good morning. Thank you for participating in this webinar. So let's start directly into the matter. First, a little bit of general context about the two calls for projects. So first question, perhaps, why two calls? To promote photovoltaics in general, it was decided to give the choice to companies to choose between two operating procedures for the calls. So you can either participate in an investment aid call or in an operating aid call. So everybody can look after their needs and expectations, specific situation of an undertaking, and first of all, the specific situation of everybody's electricity consumption, which is very important in case of self-consumption. So you have the choice between an investment aid call, that's a subsidy, a single payment on commissioning, and an operating aid call, which gives you the right when you win to conclude a market premium contract. So you have a minimum guaranteed income over a period of 15 years for the electricity injected in the grid. There's also a multi-annual calendar for both calls published. It's visible on the internet links for the two calls. So why a competitive procedure? Well, that's to comply with state aid requirements. So it's a competitive bidding process, which is also very important to have in mind. Because we are in state aid environment, cumulation of aid is of course excluded. So for these two calls, you really have to make a choice. One project cannot be simultaneously submitted to both calls for projects. And then for projects submitted in the subsidy call, you have also the possibility of guaranteed feed-in tariffs between 30 and 500 kilowatt peak, and this also is not possible to be cumulated. There is one bigger new element in these two calls, but only in the investment aid call. That's subdivision from the lots with storage or without, because optimizing the use of electricity produced generates more and more interest in storage solutions. So this was taken into account in this call by subdividing the lots into subplots and providing higher subsidies for PV plants projects with storage. Therefore, there was a few changes in the structuration of the call, which we will see later. So now you have 3 thematic lots, which are buildings, innovative solutions, and carports, shading structures, and always with only one subdivision, it is with storage or without storage. We will see that afterwards also to ensure a fair comparison between lower and higher capacity power plants. A weighting system has been introduced to guarantee a fair competition and a fair comparison. Other options to encourage battery installations, storage in general, will be probably available in the future. There are some things under consideration and are analyzed. As you surely know, there is a document called Storage Strategy for Luxembourg, which is also here in the links. So there are two important elements that are maintained from last year's calls. The first one is the innovative lots in both calls. That is designed for PV plants mounted on the facades of buildings, or PV plants using light modules on rooftops, especially, of course, on rooftops where static problems might not allow a classic PV plant, but a plant with light modules. There is one condition on these. The need to use these modules has to be established by a consultant or engineer before submitting. These two ways of installing PV have higher specific costs. Therefore, it's a specific lot. And also regarding investment costs, the specific lots for carports are maintained. Then for bigger projects above 500 kilowatt, when you submit and you win the project, a financial guarantee is required afterwards to try to ensure a high realization rate of the projects. So a few words on the use of the produced electricity. By choosing between the two calls, you also have a quite clear direction how you want to use the electricity. In case of self-consumption, sharing, or charging points directly linked, for example, to a carport, you're in a self-consumption situation probably, and perhaps you choose then the investment aid call. Otherwise, if you have a big rooftop but not that many electricity consumption, probably you will choose an operating aid project to participate in this call. Which is important to know. If you have surplus of electricity in the case of self-consumption, this surplus can and must be injected in the grid and sold on the market. And for this, you have to choose a supplier. Normally, these are electricity suppliers which are authorized to act on the electricity market. Therefore, for this contract, you have to inquire price offers before the submission, because this is a cost factor. In the case of an operating aid, you also are allowed to use yourself your electricity produced, and in this case, exceeding electricity injected is then remunerated following the rules of a market premium contract, which I will explain in more details on the next slide, I think. Not yet, then, but soon. In the general context, a little perspective into next year. Starting in 2026, there will be 2 calls for investment aid per year. The second call will focus exclusively on the capacity category between 30 and 200 kilowatt. This was decided to try and mobilize quite high potential, and regarding undertakings, particularly among small and medium enterprises. The structure of this call will be the same. Storage, no storage, buildings, innovative, and carports. And the launch is planned on February 16th next year, and the provisional budget will be 3 million euros. Okay, so a few details on the operating aid call. A little bit of general information. It's our 7th call with a market premium contract. The lots in this call are external envelopes of buildings, carports, or also water basins, and industrial sites, but following a definition quite specific to this tender. Everybody, also physical persons, can participate in this call. There is an allocation on the capacity, which is this year 45 megawatt. Submission date was already mentioned. It's late November this year, and granting decision will be made at the latest 2 months after the deadline. So here you have the different lots. The industrial sites, the rooftops, the innovative lot, and the carports are always subdivided in 2 capacity categories. And you see also the capacity, the maximum capacity allocated to each lot and sublot. Conditions on the plants, the power plants have to be new plants. Completion date has to be at the latest 18 months after the allocation. There's a possibility to extend that to 24 months, but then there is already penalty foreseen. Before submitting, it is not required to already have all authorizations. And yes, after the allocation, of course, you have to get all these, and with a special attention to the grid connection request, where we really recommend to make an inquiry before submitting, because this may also be a cost factor depending on the situation of the grid in your premises or near your premises. As already said, projects above 500 kilowatt will have to submit afterwards a financial performance guarantee. After the allocation, you have to make a contract, market premium contract with the network operator. And you also have to make a contract with a supplier, normally for the direct sales of the electricity on the market. So here you see the maximum amounts of the reference remuneration, which are in euro per megawatt hour injected into the grid. There you see that innovative lot and carports have higher maximum amounts. The ranking is made on the best price by ascending reference remuneration. In case of equality, it is made then by ascending capacity, and if needed, there will be drawing lots among the tight applications. There's a competitiveness clause foreseen in case of under subscription, because we are, as already said, in a state aid environment. But between different lots which would be undersubscribed, a transfer of capacity volumes is possible. So a few details on the contract situation in this call. As I said, the bidding is on the reference remuneration, which is important in the next explanations. On the one hand, you have to conclude a market premium contract with a grid operator. This is a standard contract approved by Luxembourg's regulation authority, ELR. And the amount of this market premium is the difference between the monthly market price and your reference remuneration. As Luxembourg is part of German market, this monthly market price is called MV Solar, and you also have the link here in the text to look at this price on an ex post basis at an internet site of German grid operators. As negative hours is quite a problem, let's say, these days, it's important to say that there have been changes to the Grand Ducal regulation, and so if you have to stop your plant operating during negative hours, these amounts of time will be added to the 15-year contract duration of your market premium contract. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, as said, this electricity injected has to be introduced directly on the market. Therefore, you have to choose an authorized representative, which normally is an electricity supplier. This contract is between you and this supplier, so conditions are free between both parties. As it's a service, this service will be invoiced by the supplier, who acts as an intermediate, and therefore it's very important to inquire price offers before submitting to be in full knowledge of the pricing facts regarding your reference remuneration. And one last bullet, as the monthly market price and the calculation of the market premium is a theoretical one, there might be afterwards slight differences with your exact reference remuneration, which you indicated for the call. So that was all for the operating aid. Now the investment aid. There we are on the fourth call for projects, and on this slide you also have the link where you have informations for all previous calls. This call is also for external envelopes of buildings. Let's say free spaces in activity zonings and carports on parking lots. Here in this call, physical persons are not eligible, only moral persons who are established in Luxembourg have, of course, an economic activity, invest in the PV plant and meet all the general conditions regarding their authorization of doing an economic activity and state aid also. The budget of this call is 17 million euros. Submission deadline, which is an online application, is 17th of October. And the grant decision will be available at normally the same time as for the operating aid call. That's late January, early February 2026. So in this call, we have the situation now with the storage. So there are 3 lots, rooftops, innovative and carports, and each is subdivided into 2 subplots. Subplot called A without storage, so PV plant only, and subplot B with storage, PV plant and battery. The budget of 70 million is also divided on under the different lots and subplots. You see the amounts here. Conditions on the PV plants, they also have to be new plants, of course. Completion date is 18 months after allocation. The same situation regarding authorizations. You don't have to have them all when submitting. This can be made afterwards. And regarding grid connection request, same recommendation. Make an inquiry before submitting, because it's depending on the situation of the grid, and it could be a cost factor. There's also a financial performance guarantee foreseen for plants above 500 kilowatt. And in the case of self-consumption in this call, you have to make a contract for surplus injected in the grid. And this contract also has to be made with a supplier of your choice. So regarding storage, there are also 3 conditions mentioned in the tender specifications. It has to be combined project, so photovoltaic panels and battery. It's a solution called behind the meter and co-located on the same site. The usable storage capacity, which is the net capacity, has to be equal or greater than 1 kilowatt hour of capacity per kilowatt peak of the PV plant. And the storage system must absorb at least 75% of its energy directly from the connected PV plant from the combined project, and this on an annual basis. So here you have the maximum amounts which can be asked for in the bidding process. You see that there is quite substantial top-up in case of storage solutions. And the bidding offer has to be done in euro per kilowatt peak of the PV installation. Here you have the amounts for the lot 1 and 2, and here for lot 3. The power category, which you see on the left, will be important for the ranking, which will be explained on the next slides. The ranking will be made on best price first, but not on the amount that you see here, but on a weighted reference aid amount. In case of equal weighted reference aid amount, the projects will be then sorted by increasing power, and if needed, there will also be a drawing lots. This call also has a competitiveness clause, as we are in state aid environment, and also a clause that in between each lot, a maximum of 40% of the budget may be granted to a single undertaking. So the power categories are defined to allow a fair comparison, as already explained, between different power categories of the plants, because we may have smaller ones, but also quite big ones. Therefore, weighting factors have been calculated in the ministry to make the rankings, and these factors are applied to the reference aid amount, and the result, the number resulting, is established solely as a basis for the rankings. These factors have been determined based on historical data from our previous calls for tenders over the years. So they are in the logic of an economy of scale. So here you have an example. As you see in the right column, it's simply ordered from low capacity to high capacity. You have the requested reference aid from the undertakings, and then you have the calculation of the weighted reference aid in the last column. And so this example is fictitious, of course, for subplot N1A, and it's the last column on which the ranking will be made. And you see the ranking on the next slide. So this would be the fictive result of these examples. And you also see the red one in the last row. This is the competitiveness clause, because at least 10% of submitted eligible offers are eliminated in case of under-subscription. And here in the case of 10 applications, this is of course one offer. In the case of 9 or less applications, also one will be eliminated. And then above that, for example, 11 applications, there will be 2 eliminated. So we hope this example is clear to all the candidates to see the ranking and weighting process. And then a last slide from my side regarding the payment of the aid. It will be paid after commissioning, so you have to upload also on Guichet internet site your invoices. Very important, when you win your project, you get an individual decision in which intensity of the aid and the amount in euros is mentioned, and these amounts cannot be exceeded. You can change your capacity of the plant after you win, but you have to pay attention. The ranking can then probably be, no, it will surely be regarded if it wouldn't have changed, and so it could be revised, and you have also to pay attention in this case to not I don't find the word to change the subplot or the category of your project. Eligible costs is of course all the electrical equipment for the PV plant. For the storage, it's the storage device, the battery, and the related installation costs. Grid connection costs are also eligible. Engineering and development, and of course for carports, structural elements are also eligible. So this was my last slide, and yes, the chat was explained. If you have questions, and I pass on to my colleague Raphael.
Thank you, Claude, and good morning to all of you also from my side. I will briefly guide you through the submission process. Your application with its supporting documents has to be submitted via the MyGuichet platform. One important aspect to remember is to submit your application before starting the project. The date of any binding commitment, for example, the signing of a quote, is considered as the start of the project. The application will be rejected if the start date is before the submission date. Undertakings in difficulty are not eligible for a state aid and will also be rejected. Lux Innovation, Chambre des Métiers, House of Sustainability, and Climat are 4 organizations that can provide you valuable support during the preparation of your application. To submit your bid, you have to log in to your MyGuichet and select your business e-space. In the search bar, you can type MECO financial aid application for companies in order to find the procedure and click on Create. The procedure has many steps with information to be provided. The top half of the steps focuses on your company's information. The bottom half focuses on your project. I will not go through every step and will only focus on the specific steps for this call in the next slides. You will be asked to select a scheme. You have to select environment ENV, environmental protection. Then you will be asked to select the type of aid. You have to select ENV-ESR, investment in the production of energy from renewable energy sources. And then lastly, you will be asked if the aid is subject to the photovoltaic call for projects. Here, please select yes. Next, in the cost window on the left side of the slide, you have to select machinery and equipment. In the drop-down field, type of cost, then write a short description of the type of cost, provide the cost of your project in euro, VAT excluded. The last two fields are the amount of yearly produced energy in kilowatt hour and the installed capacity in kilowatt peak. In the summary section on the right side of the slide, the first field is automatically filled with the information provided in the cost section. The value in the second field, aid intensity sought, should come from the Excel description sheet that I will present later on. This will calculate an aid amount and will be shown in the third field. This amount has to be copied in the fourth field. This value is your final bid. Please check that the ratio shown in the last field corresponds to the value from the Excel description sheet. This slide summarizes the list of documents to be attached to the submission. A mandate is required if the person who submits the application cannot engage the company. Then an org chart with all the linked companies is asked, the latest annual accounts for the applicant company and the group, the company's bank account identification document, the joint social security center certificate, the site use rights certificate, a quote. The annual financial statements should also be filled in the provided Excel forms, the company size, and finally the project description. Lux Innovation, Chambre des Métiers, House of Sustainability, and Climat-Agence can help you if you have issues with these documents. All supporting documents are available on the Guichet webpage in the section Online Services and Forms. The project description file, the last document from the list of documents to be attached, is an Excel file that has to be submitted with the application. All fields in dark or yellow or light yellow have to be completed. It is normally pretty straightforward to complete the sheet, and there are many verification steps. Next to each field, you will find a check. If something is not correct, it will show to you not okay. When all checks are okay, the file status on the top will change to complete, which is a good sign. Finally, this last slide provides you some useful links for your project and also concludes my part. Thank you for listening to me, and do not hesitate to contact one of the organizations previously mentioned if you have an issue with your application. I will pass the word now to Tom.
Hello, good morning, and welcome everybody, also from my side. So my name is Tom Rajek. I am working at the Climat-Agence, more specifically in the department responsible for companies and enterprises. And one of our main targets is actually to structure the market offering and make it accessible to the companies. And in this respect, we have developed and implemented what we call the Guide to Authorizations, which I will present to you in the next following slides. So first of all, I want to start out with saying that if you want to make your project a success, well, you definitely need to make sure that you comply with the legislative framework, which is set in place in order to protect humans as well as the environment. This legislative framework is put into place by laws and regulations, and these require you to obtain permits for your different kinds of projects. And in order to facilitate that process, respectively, to give you a better overview and to guide you through those procedures, we have, as I said, implemented the Guide to Authorization, which is actually a simple and efficient tool to help you get the overview and guide you through all the processes and the procedures. So what the Guide to Authorizations actually covers is the following laws that you see here on the screen. The most noticeable ones are the classified establishments, also known as Commodo Incommodo, but also the nature protection and water law. I will not go through them individually, but this is just to give you an indication of what the guide actually covers of laws. Also, what the guide covers is not only, as we are in the scope of this webinar, the photovoltaics, but also a more broader range of renewable energy production plants, noticeably maybe wind power or biogas plants. These are also covered by the Guide to Authorizations. That is the production perspective, but then we also have storage units which are covered, electrical storage units like battery or gas storage units, which in some cases also need specific permits to be put into place. Now, how to get to this Guide to Authorizations? Well, you can easily download it via the Klimaagence site. The link to this site is shown here on the top slide. If you don't have the link directly, you can click yourself through it. You'll see on the top side of the Klimaagence site, there is a button called Businesses, and there below a Companies button highlighted here in red. If you click on that, that will send you to the next site, and here you'll need to select Generating and Sharing Electricity. And then finally, you'll come to this site where you'll need to click on the Guide to Authorization Procedures, which will then lead you to the download section where you all have those different downloads considering the Guide to Authorizations. So there are a few different attachments also to that procedure, which shows workflows, and these are also downloadable here. It is worthwhile mentioning that the guide is only available in French, so there's no translation available as of right now. So that's what we need to work with. And in order to showcase a little bit what the content of this guide is, we'll have a specific case study. In our case, to comply with also the current project for tenders, we have a carport of 1.2 megawatt peak power located in a business park. And based on this case, we're going through the manual of procedure, the Guide to Authorizations right now. So first of all, in the guide, you will select photovoltaics as a renewable power plant, and this will set you to this site where you have basically the split made by the peak power of your production plant. So depending on your peak power of the production plant, you'll have different permits that will be required. Here you see that in our case, since we have a 1.2 megawatt peak carport, we are within the red highlighted section, which gives us already a hint or an indication of what needs to be maybe considered. And here it says, if we need an electric transformer, we might need a specific permit also for this one. So if we click on that, because that's our category, and all links in the manual of procedures, respectively the Guide to Authorizations, are hyperlinks. We just click on that, and that will lead us to the next slide, which is then actually this table. And in this table, it is split basically in 3 columns. And if we look at them individually, the first column basically gives us an idea of the legal basis. So here, all the tables are the same. We always mention the same laws that I showed you a few slides before. And if we want to have more information, or if we need to have more information on that respective law, we just click on it and it will send us right to the legal basis where we can read through. We then also can find the contents of the application file. So what do I actually need to hand in to get the permit? But then also the procedures themselves. So as I said, workflows, which indicate what do I actually need to send to whom at which time in order to get my permit. And then also maybe less important for photovoltaic project, but more for the other ones, there's an independence between the procedures that needs to be respected, meaning that I cannot start with one permit before having the previous one. As I said, for photovoltaics, it's maybe less representative. If we then move on to the second column, well, this gives us basically the idea whether that law or framework is applicable to our case. Here we see we have several cases where we have the law that is not applicable to our case. For example, the waste law is not applicable to this. But in general, all the other ones that are applicable, it gives us also already a hint and a specific application for our case. So a little more details. And then at the end, we have the third column, which basically gives us the direct link to the procedure, meaning the written procedure, but then also in the appendix, the procedural workflow, where we can really get a good idea on what can we expect out of this procedure and who do we need to get in contact with to get this process running. This is an example of such a workflow. I mean, it's pretty difficult to see on the screen right now, but these are basically two examples applying to our case, one for the water law and the other one for the commodo-incommodo law. And basically the main difference is that here we get specific lead times or delays only from the moment where we have the notification that our file is complete, whereas in the commodo-incommodo law, we get specific lead times for every step of the process which are defined by law, basically. So we have a very good idea how long this takes. And the commodo-incommodo in our case is not even necessary for the photovoltaic cells, but more for the transformer, which is in our case bigger than 1,000 kilovolt ampere. And to conclude this, basically I would show you what a timeline of such a project can look like in case of our 1.2 megawatt carport. Basically, these are all the relevant permits that we need to get. And what is to highlight here is basically that they can start all simultaneously. So you can make all the filings right at the same point. And basically the total lead time will depend on the longest one, which in our case here is the permit for construction, which takes about 4 months to get. But then there is also an appeal period of 3 months, which in theory, you can already start working during this, but there's a risk that if ever this gets accepted, that will set you back again a few months. So for our specific projects, we can count with round about 7 months of lead time to get all the permits in the worst case. Obviously, it could go faster, but in the worst case, it's 7 months. So that's basically what I wanted to share today, give you a brief overview of the Guide to Authorization. And I think with that, we can hand over again to Jordi for the FAQ, the questions that you might have.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the Q&A session. Some questions have already been raised in the question tab, so I will start by reading them out loud. The first question was, what is meant by a new installation? If a building has an existing installation and wishes to replace with a new installation, is that acceptable for the subsidy for investment? The client currently has auto-consummation. I will give the mic to Claude to answering this question.
Yes, thank you, Jordi. So in this case, and if you replace an existing installation, so the new one is really a new installation regarding to the two calls. You can do that. That's no problem. But just to mention it, you could also install a new installation besides an existing one. You just then have to make sure that the two installations have separate meters, and this would also be okay. But yes, replacing is in case of photovoltaics seen as a new installation. What would not be a new installation is if you have the capacity of the existing one and you enlarge that capacity behind the same meter. That would not be allowed.
Okay, thank you. The second question is considering an office building solution, if a client wishes to install a 250 kilowatt to 500 kilowatt hours battery, I assume that there is no concerns about the 75% storage from the photovoltaic power plant, and therefore the equivalent battery storage of the power PV plant will be covered. I will let also Claude respond to this question.
Yes, this example seems okay for me, makes sense for an office building, and normally I would say the 75% clause would make no problem there.
Then we have another question, which is concerning a sub-lot category. If a call for investment aid is made for 100 kilowatt peak and granted based on that size of installation, but by the time of the installation, the modules are available are 10% more efficient, I assume this presents no concern for the aid, which is approved is already granted for the 100 kilowatt peak. Maybe Raphael can answer this question.
Yes, I can. So it's like Claude mentioned in his part of the presentation, there are different power categories where we will use a weighting factor. If you stay within this power category, let's say if you install more power, we will not give you more aid. So this will not present any issues. If you install, but within this power category, if you switch from one power category to the other one, then it's a different weighting factor. So we will every time you at the moment when you will ask for the payment, we will check what is the power that you have installed. Has it changed versus the application? If it has changed, where would you land within the ranking? And it could a worst case happen that you, let's say you switch, you pass in a different power category, and then you would have been kicked out, and so we can at that moment we cannot pay you the aid. So please try to stay within the power capacity that you have provided. I mean, a jump of 10% efficiency. This is now the fourth call that we are organizing. We haven't seen that before.
Okay, thank you for answering this question. There is another question. If a company plans to install both a roof and facade elements within one new project, which subcategory would be applicable to this project?
This one. So regarding different technologies, let's say you can submit 2 or even more offers for one site, for one premise. In this example, if you have a classical rooftop plant and facade elements, you would submit one project in the rooftop plot and one project in the innovative lot. If on the rooftop it's also light modules, this would mean you present one project in the innovative lot. And as I said, normally for one premise it's one application. But if you really are in the situation you have your building on your premise and also a parking lot, in this example, this could mean, and it would be allowed to present 3 different projects in 3 lots. It has classical rooftop, innovative for the facade, and a third project if you also have the possibility to make a carport. What is not allowed is to present 2 projects in one lot and only make a difference on the capacity. So if you want to present 2 classical rooftop projects with 199 kilowatt, that's not allowed. Then you would have to present one project in the rooftop lot with 398 kilowatt.
Thank you. So I believe we have covered all the questions which are in the tab. So I would thank you very much for Claude Clemens, Raphael Vertommen, and Tom Rajek for your contributions and answers provided. Thank you to all participants for joining and following this webinar, and which we hope has provided you with the information you were looking for. Once again, there will be a replay of this webinar, and the slides will also be available on Lux Innovation's website. We also remain at your disposal for any questions during this call for projects which are open until the 17th of October 2025 for the investment aid and until the 28th of November 2025 for the operating aid. I just saw that there is an additional question which has been asked now. So I will read it out loud. So it's just for full clarification on the new installation. The roof space is limited, so in order to optimize the space, the existing installation needs to be removed and then the new installation installed. However, the question comes back to the meter. If you wish to keep the existing meter, is that an issue?
No, that's not an issue, but yes, as you write it, you really have to replace the existing installation. Meter, of course, can stay the same.
Okay. Thank you very much. And with this, a small reminder that both calls are open, and for the calls is open for the investment aid until the 17th of October 2025, and for the operating aid until the 28th of November 2025. With this said, I will thank you very much and I wish you an excellent day and goodbye.